What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today, well, it's occurred to me that we haven't done any videos about planes yet. And that makes me a little bit sad. I did consider sitting down and having a good old cry about it. And then I realised, well, hang on a second, why don't we make a video about planes? And maybe the most exciting of all of these is Starscream Air Commander. Now, as it happens, we do actually also have Starscream Scheming Second in Command. I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not a huge fan of it. It's a fairly straightforward, moderately unexciting card. But Starscream Air Commander, now that is a card behind which I can most definitely get. Now, when I did my ranking of the top 5 character cards yesterday, I told you this came close but no cigar because of its stats. The stats are not terribly exciting. The average Transformer is an 8 cost, this is an 11 cost. But the average Transformer has an attack of 4, a defense of 2, and a health of 12. So, even though you're almost 50% above the average cost, you've got 1 more health than average, and then both the attack and defense are in line with the average in bot mode, and 1 below in alt mode. The stats, to be perfectly blunt, are not particularly great. The good news is, we have got skills here which make us fairly happy. If you are in bot mode here, you have bold 2. Interestingly enough, in alt mode, the other Starscream has bold 1. You know, go bold, I suppose. You get to flip 2 more cards over when you are attacking. This is kind of fun, this is good, this increases the attack, and there are ways to take advantage of that. We'll get to that in a moment. But I believe the far better skill is the one here in alt mode. When you flip to this mode, do damage to an enemy equal to the number of other planes that you have. So the way I see it here, quite simply, if you're going to be playing with this card, it's got to be an entirely planes deck, and you've got to be playing a maximum number of planes. As far as I'm concerned, there is a correct team for planes here, although as always, if you've got an alternate thing, let me know in the comment section, we'll have a chat about it. I adore Thundercracker Mac Warrior. We will be doing a video about him in the next few days, week or so. Because when you play an action, it gets +1 attack until the end of turn. That's awesome. And then when you flip into alt mode, you get to do 2 damage to a melee enemy. Now, admittedly, you don't always end up playing against melee characters, that's fine, but when you consider that Starscream does damage to an enemy equal to the number of other planes you have, and Thundercracker does 2 damage to a melee enemy, this will combine, this will add up to get a lot of extra cheeky damage onto the field. I adore this. So I think you got to go Thundercracker. Since you've got to really have a deck with 3 planes, your only option then is Skywarp Sneaky Prankster, because it's the only plane that costs 6 stars or less. It's fine, the stats are a little bit low. Actually, to be fair, the stats are in line with the average, but the health is a bit low. In bot mode, when you're defending and you flip at least 1 icon, you choose one of your other characters. If you do damage from this attack is done to that character instead. That's pretty cool. Might I also suggest Force Field here, so you can redirect it to a character and then they only take 4 damage. And in alt mode, you flip to it and each player reveals the top card of their deck. Gives you some nice information. It's not a stunning skill, but it does give you nice information. I think it's got to be Starscream, Thundercracker, Skywarp if you're going to be playing a planes deck here. So if we really want to take advantage of this do damage to an enemy equal to the number of other planes you have, what would be really nice here is really trying to build on this and just trying to get cheeky damage around the field. Now clearly you've got Thundercracker here, who can do 2 damage to a melee enemy, though only a melee enemy. And then we've got a couple of action cards here. Zap does 2 damage to an enemy, that's quite nice. Plasma Burst does 2 damage to an enemy, and Photon Bomb does 2 damage to each character, that's yours and your opponent's indiscriminately. Although both Plasma Burst and Photon Bomb don't have any icons on, so that is something to bear in mind here. You're not really getting any extra advantage when you attack or defend and flip them over. Either way, they would be fun cards to use to try and make sure that you're making the most of your, what is essentially, as I like to phrase it, cheeky damage. So I think that's probably the best way to play with Starscream here. Flipping to the mode, doing the extra damage, 2 damage each time, that sounds fun. However, we do have Bold 2 in bot mode, and we do have a higher attack and a higher defense in bot mode, and I like bot mode here. But you've already got Bold 2, so this is one of those where you really want to try and maximize it. Be as bold as you can. So how about using Flamethrower here? Flamethrower is a nice little upgrade card that gives you Bold 2. So now you haven't actually got Bold 2 on Starscream, now you're up to Bold 4. Maybe you want to use an action card to push this a little bit further. Might I suggest Supercharge here, that gives one of your characters Bold 3 until the end of the turn. So you combine a Flamethrower with Supercharge, and just bot mode generally, and all of a sudden you're up to Bold 7. Attack of 4 might be dead on average, but with Bold 7, flipping an extra 7 cards when you attack, you're probably going to have a nice little time here, getting a whole bunch of attacking off. And I suppose at this point it'd be a little bit rude if I didn't mention Null Ray of Starscream. It is an upgrade weapon, it gives you +1 attack, and it gives you Bold 2. Now, if we compare it side by side with Flamethrower, it's a better Flamethrower. Because, first of all, it's still got an orange icon, it's still got Bold 2, but it gives you +1 attack. But it's only for Starscream, which means if you play Flamethrower, you can pop it on any of your characters, whereas this has to go on to Starscream. So this is great for Starscream, but it's probably a 1 or 2 of, it's not a 3 of in a deck. Because if you draw it and you want to put it on one of your other characters, gutted. Fun times. Now, being a plane here, there are a couple of extra cards that you can use. We've got an action card, Bombing Run. Choose an enemy character, move 1 damage counter from each of your planes to that enemy. Now this is quite good in the mid to late game, especially if you've been able to keep all 3 of your planes alive. I should at this stage remind you about Skywarp. If you're defending and you flip a white icon, you can move the damage that would have been done to Skywarp to another one of your planes. Given that Skywarp has the lowest health here and is therefore the most likely to be KO'd, this could be used to keep it alive. And then you can just sit here, play Bombing Run, and start moving this damage onto your opponent's side of the field. You could also have a sneaky combo here with a bit of the old Photon Bomb. Use Photon Bomb to 2 damage to all of your opponent's characters, 2 damage to all of yours, and then you can immediately play Bombing Run, so you're actually doing 5 damage to one of your opponent's characters, 2 to the others, and 1 to each of yours. And if you're thinking, hang on a second, Wossy, 2 actions in 1 turn, that seems a little bit unfair. Do remember, Brainstorm is the card that will allow you to do just that. In terms of upgrade cards, you do have access to Aerial Recon. It is an upgrade card that can only be put onto planes, and when you attack or defend, you can look at the top card of your deck and scrap it. I.e., if you're attacking and you see an orange icon, keep it, it's going to add to your attack. If you see a blue icon or even 0 icons, i.e. there's nothing, maybe on Plasma Burst for instance, you can get rid of it. So you're getting rid of a card that you don't want to flip when attacking or defending, and hopefully you'll draw into one that you do. Given that you're a little bit blind when you're attacking or defending, crossing your fingers to hit orange icons when attacking, blue icons when defending, using Aerial Recon here is really, really handy at just helping you out. Not to mention it does up your defense by 1, so that's quite nice as well. And of course, we're a ranged character here. Now, Starscream's a ranged character, but Skywarp's a ranged character, and so is Thundercracker. Obviously, they're ranged characters. They're literally aeroplanes. But given that they are ranged characters, we do have, well, at least one extra little trick here. A couple extra little tricks. We've got Armed Hovercraft, a weapon, an upgrade that ups your attack by 1, and when you put it on a ranged character, you do 1 damage to each enemy. Hopefully you're starting to see a theme here. I could have mentioned this earlier, I chose to save it for when we're talking about ranged options, but now you're doing damage to each enemy with Armed Hovercraft. You might be playing stuff like Photon Bomb or Plasma Burst. You've got Thundercracker that does damage to a melee enemy, and Starscream itself does damage to an enemy for each plane. This is going to spread a lot of damage around in addition to your regular attack, which is really where we're going with a Starscream deck here. But we should also mention that we do have access to Rapid Ascent here. Ups your defense by 1, and when you put it on a ranged character, your opponent chooses a card from their hand and scraps it. It's just really nice in terms of having a little bit of disruption that you can chuck in here to hurt your opponent. Starscream is a great card, not in terms of stats. We talked about how the stats aren't particularly good. But range means it's got some options, planes means it's got some options, and quite frankly, you're making a deck here that is dropping a lot of extra damage in addition to your regular attacking. You don't have to play stuff like Photon Bomb and Plasma Burst, but, you know, seems like you might want to really maximize that. Either way, you've still got the bold in bot mode. I like it. It's a good character. But I would like to know if you think it's a good character. A great way to do that would be in the comment section. So do go nuts, but remember the rule, ladies and gentlemen. You got to be nice. It's very important. Make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That is where I share all of my thoughts. But by far the most important thing, as always, is to look after yourselves. Until next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.